Hi guys, Squirrel here. Welcome to my episode 2 of Derail Valley Overhauled or Simulator, depending on when you watch this. It's going to change name at some point during the summer of 2023. We just did that job back there. And what I'm going to do today is I'm going to show you some of the thinking behind license choices, because I think for any new player in particular, if you're just starting out on this game, you will struggle to decide, well, hang on, I can see all these licenses here, and I know I've got so much money, but, you know, how the heck do I decide which license to go for? What do they all do? How do I make money quickly? You know, etc. So I'm going to give you a little bit of advice on that, a few tips and things. First, the thing I want to show you is this is stats here. So if you scroll down and press confirm on that, what that will do is it will show you, obviously, how much money you've got, how many active jobs you've got. This is your copay remaining. This is your insurance copay. At the start of the game, it starts out very low. So copay is the percentage that you pay based on how many, you know, if you have like 10 grand in fees, but your copay is 1,000, you only pay 1,000. However, you can't just go out racking up massive bills and then only paying 1,000. There is a fee tolerance here, $5,000. So if you owe more than $5,000 in fees on a particular vehicle, you won't be able to take any more jobs until you clear it down, which is a fair thing. The next one I want you to look at is the time bonus deadline. At the moment, it starts on 0, and this is the adjustment to how much time you have to do a job. So when you take a job, for example, this one here, 36 minutes, at 0%, it's not going to make any adjustment to that. However, if you look at some licenses, for example, if we was to spend 10,000 of our dollars on concurrent jobs, what effect will that have on our fees and our deadlines, etc.? And the way you find out is by pressing the print button. So if you press the print button on concurrent jobs 1, it then says to you, well, if you get this license, your copay will go up by another $7.5 grand. So whatever your copay is right now, it will add $7,500 to it. And your time bonus deadline will be reduced by 2%. This is really important because what that's saying is, out of all your fees, you're going to have to start shelling out more money, Sonny. And also, you're going to have to do your jobs a bit quicker because you're getting more skilled, aren't you? You're taking more jobs on, etc. So this is something that you have to be aware of, and not all jobs, not all licenses, sorry, will have such a big effect. Honestly, I have to point something out to you. For example, military 1. You may think, oh my God, I really want to haul military jobs. Well, you may think again when you see this. Because if you take the military 1 license, and this is only the 1 license, your insurance copay will go up by another $300,000. Yeah, $300,000. Now, for a guy with $14,000 in his wallet, I mean, that's a lot of money, don't get me wrong, but $300,000, I really don't want to pay in those kind of fees. So if you make a mistake with your license choices too early, you will jeopardize your ability to make money in the early game. And that's important. So what I want to do is I want to show you a couple of things. It would be fun, I think, for you to see a shunting job in action, because a shunting job involves unloading trains quite often. It either involves loading or unloading. And I'll show you how to do that. So we're going to take a shunting job today because I want to show you that in action. And quickly, if I look at shunting, because shunting only costs $1,000, which is pretty neat. And if you print it out, it doesn't make any adjustment to your copay or your time bonus deadline. So this is something that's worth having quite early in the game, just so that you can get shunting jobs done. And more importantly, and this is a significant thing that new players don't know, if you take not an unloading job, but if you take a loading job, we must have one somewhere. Is that a loading job? Unload and store. Unload and store, unload and store. Well, we don't seem to have one. That's a shame. If you can find a shunting job that says load a train, right? When you complete that job, it will then generate another job immediately afterwards to haul that freight. So if you, for example, see these empty cars here, this one's on about, if there was a shunting job to basically load those cars with containers or something, that will generate a freight job after you complete that. So it's a great way of generating new cards if you don't like the ones that you've been given. What I'll do is I'll buy the shunting license now, and then we've got it done. that one. It's only $1,000. So we'll take that. That makes no adjustment to our stuff. And we can confirm that by going to stats, and you can see 0%, 100, nothing has changed. The only question then is, which one do we take? There are two choices really at this stage. The first choice is concurrent 1, which allows you to do 2 jobs at a time. I would recommend not doing that one until you are very proficient at moving things around quickly. The moment you've got full control over your train and you can unhook and hook things quickly and find the platforms you're meant to be at, then you take concurrent jobs. Otherwise, it's a big headache for a new player. Train length 1, on the other hand, train length 1 is quite good. It only puts your copay up by 3%, by 3,000, sorry. It brings your deadline down by 2%, which is not insignificant, but it's not huge. But it will unlock better jobs, because if you look, for example, this one here is a shunting job that requires a long 1 license. So if we had a long 1 license, we could actually do this one and this one, right? And they're both paying 5 figures. And I like 5-figure jobs, guys. I like 5-figure jobs. So if we can do 5-figure jobs, that's good with me. However, when you're doing this, always pay attention to the train mass. Wherever we've only got access to a shunter at the moment, the DE2, and 490 tons, even on the flat of the harbour, it can do it, but it's going to struggle. It more or less copes with up to about 400 on the flat. If you try to take it out the harbour, a lot less. But 315 on the flat, that's doable. So without going through the rest of these, I think we're probably going to go for the shunting jobs. That will then unlock the possibility of this one later, you see, because once we've got long 1, we can take longer jobs. And the advantage of logistic hauls is they're quite usually empty cars, and empty cars don't weigh very much, right? So you get the benefit then of hauling a large empty consist a distance and getting paid big money, 14 grand. And that would happen if we had long 1, which we'll get shortly, and if we have logistic haul license. And logistic haul license is another sort of 10 grand, I think it is. However, sorry, 20 grand, so we'll have to save up. However, look at this. The logistic haul license does not change your copay, and it increases your time deadline by 5%, so it gives you longer to do a job. So that's worth having. So the way we're going to do this is we've got shunting. We're going to get long haul, which is this one here, or train length 1 as it's called. We'll confirm that. Drop in our hard-earned cash, and we now have that license. So straight away, our copay has gone up, and our time bonus deadline has gone down, and we can confirm this by looking in here. If you look, our fee tolerance has remained the same at 5,000, but our copay is now 3,000. Our time bonus deadline, minus 2%. So things have jumped up. Our money's jumped down. We're ready to take a job. We are going to take this one here. I'm going to show you how to unload and store a train in a shunting job with our long 1 license. And one final thing to point out before I start looking for these cars is, here's a tip for you. You can teleport around the map. What you do is you click on any yellow dot here. Let's say I want to teleport to the steel mill. If I hover over, I can fast travel. It'll cost me $981 to fast travel to the steel mill. If I want to take a locomotive with me, it'll cost me a lot more. You just stand in the locomotive and you can do it. Or you can press the F key and kind of, jump your way around the map. The moment you leave an area, the moment we leave the harbour, all the jobs, whoops, wrong preview press. All the jobs in here will be completely refreshed. When you leave this harbour, all the things on the tracks will refresh. It will change all the jobs. If you need to go away from the harbour for whatever reason, but you want to keep a particular job, all you need to do is put it in your hotkey. So just pick it up, keep hold of it, and you can leave the harbour and come back and it will still be here. And that is a really useful thing to know. So let's go and find this this consist, and then we'll move a shunt around and we'll get on with it. So I did the usual thing, bring up the job, have a look at the number there, HB Harbour, SU55, and then go and find the cars. HB SU55 is the front car. Always check the rear car just to make sure there's nothing in between. HB SU55, so that's it. That's the whole thing right there. And if you really want to, you can count the cars and just make sure that's everything, but you can see it's 7 cars. Right, now the way shunting... Oh, by the way, if you want to find this stuff, if you look at the harbour overview, Let me spin around. It pays to learn about the harbour because you'll find yourself coming here quite a bit. But effectively, the C is where you unload and load liquids, and D is where you unload and load the harder stuff like this. So if you actually scroll through and look at C, it says liquids loading yard. And if you look at D, it says crane loading yard. And that's where we are. We're in the crane loading yard. If you actually look at the specific platform that we're on, or track, is 4I. So we are over here at 4I, coming in from the north, which is that way. That's north. So effectively, we are looking at it that way. So 4I, then 5S, which is this siding here. And then you've got 6O, which is the output line, and then 7L, which is the loading line. So this is, no doubt, this is going to be where we need to bring that. We will no doubt need to bring it from there to here and basically unload the whole thing, and then we'll have to take it back to a siding somewhere. That's going to be the job. Now, you could, if you want to, you could take that over here before you hand your job in. The game does not penalise you, at least not currently, for moving things around the yard before you start the job. It's up to you whether you do that or not, whatever you feel comfortable with. I am going to go and hand the job in now. I think we've got more than enough time. I will show you in the next episode, by the way, how to buy a stopwatch, because a stopwatch can be very handy in this game. But let's kick the clock off by handing this job in. We'll get that job. It will say, no doubt, go to D4I. That's exactly what it says. Go to D4I and hook up. Take it to 7L. What surprise. The only thing we don't know is where to go after that. C1S. Drop 4 off at C1S. Drop 3 off at G1S. So it's a little bit more complicated than, you know, a simple pick up and drop. But, you know, we're experts here. We can do this. We'll start that. We will release the brakes. Get it into forward. While we're waiting for the brake line to pressure up, you can see the brake pipe coming up. Until it gets to near 4, the cars won't be released properly. But while that's happening, we'll have a quick look at C. Because it said, I think it was, quickly look, D7L, C1S, and G1S is where it used to go. C1S and G1S. So C1S is here, and G1S is over here. Right, okay. Just to remind ourselves where C is. C is over there, G's over there. We're in D. So what we'll probably do is, we'll have to check the cars when they're loading, but let's just get out of here for now. We need to get this thing moving. When you throttle up, just don't give it too much initially. If you start to get that wheel spin, just back it off a little bit. Give the chance, you know, the wheels to rotate. But yeah, there's a few things that will make life a little bit easier that we can buy later. One of them is a stopwatch, and the other one is the remote control, which I think I've mentioned previously. I will show you in the future episodes where to get them, how much they cost, but they will make, particularly when it comes to shunting, the remote control makes life that much easier, because you can get out and remote control the train, and it's very, very handy. But when you start out, you've got to do things the hard way. That's just how it is. We want to be coming down here, and we want to keep right to go into 7L, which is the loading bay. So we'll need that to be switched to the right. We can get that done now. There we go. We'll just back off on the old throttle there. Around the yard, you probably want to be doing no more than 30, particularly on these bends. When you're on the straight bits, you can go a bit quicker, but you know, 30 is more than enough when you're moving this kind of stuff around. Now this is where, if we had the remote control, we can actually stand near the switch and see when the train has gone past the edge, but I'm going to take a wild guess. I'll put the brakes on there and then jump out. Yeah, I've got this fine. And I've not used the train brake, I've just used the independent brake, just because it will release far, far quicker. What you can do is put the reverser into reverse and start throttling up. That will help give you some braking effect as well. But then just don't forget to release the brakes and let the reverser take over. A lot of weight behind us, by the way, remember. This is rated for 400 tons. And this job was like well into the 300s, if I remember. 315. Right, so D7L, unload. Then we're going to have to drop off these cars, and it depends on the order the cars are in. It depends whether these are at the front or the back. So what we'll need to do is if we just back off on the old accelerator now, and then we'll have a quick inspection at the back of our train. You could do this beforehand. So 764, CVT 764 is at the back. 7649. Okay, so what did we... So that will be 764, 769, 505, 968. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that should be 968. Yes, it is. So what we have at the back of the train are these 4 cars. So we need to go to C initially. That's where we're going to have to go first. So when we pull out of here, we'll go and reverse over into C, and then we'll have to reverse into G to finish the job off. And that's the other thing that you have to get used to when you're shunting, is the order that you unpack things is determined by the order that it's in at the beginning. The reverse is also true. When you do concurrent jobs later on, when you're building a train of more than one job, you need to be very choosy about what you put at the back of the train, because that will be the thing that you can drop off first. So generally what I will try and do when I build a train is I'll put the most expensive job at the back. That way I've got more chance of dropping that first and getting the bonus on it. And if I run over time on the rest of it, well, at least the value is lower. Right. Give it a bit more throttle. You can't rush this too much, but equally you've got to get a move on. Now what we need to do is clear this 7L sign here. As long as we get past this 7L sign, then the cargo will unload. So I'm going to whack the indie brake on now. That will grind to a halt. And what we want to do is run down here, and there should be a little loader unloader, and it will basically tell you when this train stops, it will tell you that it's available. If you pull it to the left, it will unload. If you pull it to the right, it will load. It will tell you what this unloads and unloads. Just got to wait for the train to stop. There you go. Train in range for unload. You see that? So now we can pull this to the left. You see that? It just unloaded all that train. So we've done that bit now. We can now release the brake, put the reverser into forward, and we need to make our way over to C. C1S in particular. Little tip for you, get your toolbar sorted. I always have my switch remote on 1. I always have my station map on 2. And I always have my world map on 3. If you press the tab key, it kind of shows you. And while you're holding the tab key down, you can drag things around to reorder them. 1, 2, and 3, super important to always have the same thing in the same order. Everything else doesn't really matter, but those 3, you will need to jump to them so frequently that you want to have them on the same hotkey. So anyway, we're coming out of D. We need to go straight out. We need to go through that triangle and then reverse back into C. And if we remember, we're going into 1S, but 1S coming from the north. So we need to keep left going in, and we're going to be dropping the rear 4 cars off. Try and get ahead of yourself, get ahead of the train when you're doing this. Otherwise, you'll find yourself panicking and making mistakes. Another way we can do that is by jumping out now and making sure the points are switched correctly. We're going to be going right there, and then we're going to be keeping right through this triangle, and then we're going to stop after this one and reverse back that way. If we follow the triangle down towards the C yard, we can even prep 1S there, you see that? So this is C1S. You'll notice there's already cars in the yard. We don't have to hook up to them, but we will have to drop those 4 here. It will probably generate another job to basically build that consist, another logistic haul. This is how the game works. It will try and build jobs based on what you move around the yard. And maybe in the next episode we can think about doing a logistic job, because they're quite interesting themselves. They require you to do a mixture of transport and shunting. They really give you a bit of a workout, logistic hauls. Because you'll often find it will put things in the way. It will tell you to pick up 2 cars, but in front of it is another car that you don't need, and you have to sort of move that out of the way first. Now this thing should brake a bit better, just because it's not full anymore. So put the reverser into reverse. Flick that. Fire up the reverse. A little bit too much, you could hear the wheel spin. Don't let it wheel spin because it will cause damage to the wheels and you'll have to pay. In the early days, because of the copay, it won't cost you much money. But get into good habits if you're new to this game, get into good habits early on. Because they will cost you a lot of money later if you don't. Now, we do have to be careful with this because we know we're reversing into a yard that already has cars on the track that we're dropping off. So we are going to have to slow down a little bit and just watch the back of this thing. I so wish I had the remote right now. I really do. Because what I normally do is stand on the back there and hold the remote and you can see what's going on. We'll just have to eyeball it from here, I'm afraid. Okay, I'm going to slow down now. Because if I do, we might have to push into those cars, connect, pressurize the brake lines, and then move the whole thing a bit further back. We need those 4 cars to be over the line. You see we've lost visibility now. Just gonna let it gently roll and have a quick look. 1, 2, 3, 4 over that line. Yeah, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. We are going to have to connect and push back. We'll just wait. One, two, three. Yeah, you see it won't do it. So what we're going to do is connect this, connect that, release the valves, wait for everything to pressurize, and we're going to have to shunt it a little bit further back. Let's just have a quick look at the back of this thing. Okay, so not a lot of room. We just need to push back a couple of cars. C1S is definitely where we're meant to be, isn't it? Yep, C1S. 4 cars, nothing wrong. Just double check. Whoops. This is a heck of a wait for one shunter. Even though they're all empty, this is a lot of mass right now. Right, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's pretty much 4 over the line. I'm going to stop it there. Whoops, I just jumped out the wrong place. 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's over that line. We want to break it here. Unhook that. Now if you do this, it normally lets the air out the line there. That should park those 4. So now we need to take these 3 over to G. So we want to be heading out to the left. Because we need to reverse back. I mean, it actually doesn't matter. If you want to be quicker, we could probably go in forward, but the danger is we don't know what's at the other end waiting for us. If we have to reverse in, if there's already some cars on the track that we're going into, G1S, if we don't reverse in, we're going to trap the locomotive on the track. And by the way, don't leave locomotives on the tracks over there, because if you do, the game can't spawn new jobs. It can't do it. You need to get your locomotives out of the way when you finish a job. Don't just leave them lying around on the tracks. You will inhibit the job engine if you do that. Flick that over. Okay, Right, we know we want to go to G1S. Let's get this thing going. That's a good enough speed. So we want to make a right turn here. We want to come down here and make a left turn into G. And then we need to find G1S. G2S, G1S, so we keep all the way left. It looks like it's empty, which is good. But having reversed into it does mean that we'll be able to just pull that loco out of there when we're done. But we will, of course, hand the job in before we do that. Okay, let's make sure we're doing like nearly 13. Maximize our speed. Whoops, wrong button. Okay, I've not kept track of the elapsed time, but how long do we have for this? 24. We're probably not far off. We're probably running up to about 20 minutes right now, but I think we should get our bonus. As long as we don't do something stupid, derail. The problem is if you get something wrong, if you flick a switch the wrong way, by the time you pull out and fix the problem, you'll often find that you lose your bonus. You get your bonus if you get everything right and you're prepared and planned, you know? Okay, brakes are going on. I'm going to turn the engine off. And we're going to run for it. This is what you do. You run for it. Run for that bonus. Run so fast you'd run all the way past the station. And then hand your job in. 15 minutes, bonus time 24. Okay. Right, 16,300 is what we just got. And if you look at our fees, 2,692. Excuse me. Pay your fees to reduce your reducing copay to $407. So we've racked up 2,692 on that locomotive. Now remember, on the stats, the fee tolerance is $5,000. Now what that means is we don't need to pay our fees off yet unless we want to buy another license. We can still take more jobs right now. I'm just going to move this out of the way. We can still take more jobs right now without paying anything. And we can maximize our copay insurance advantage, which is quite low right now. Let's maximize it and increase our income. So we'll get this out of the way just so that it doesn't stop that whole thing from being despawned or changed by the job engine. I'm going to move this over to one of the shunting points, which is where I got it from, and then we're going to leave this locomotive alone. I don't want to rack up any more fees on it, because if we go over 5,000, I will have to pay the fees off in order to take another job, because it will have exceeded the tolerance limit, if that makes sense. But what we can do is park this up, and on the next job we can take a different shunter. There's one over there, and we can rack up another fee on that one. Yeah? Until we want to buy another license, we do not need to pay our fees. So why would we? Let's just keep taking locos from around the yard. We can only access DE2s. We could even teleport to another location and take a DE2 from there. But unless I want to buy a license, I'm not going to pay those fees off. And this is how you sort of maximize your income in the early days, which is pretty important because, you know, let's face it, $19,000 is not a lot of money. So we'll park this up. So we started the day with about 14,000, didn't we? I think we started this episode with $14,000. And we now have $19,000. We have more money than we started with, although we've still got some fees to pay, but not many. And more importantly, we have obtained 2 licenses, Shunting and Long Haul 1. So we're well on the way to being able to take some of these bigger jobs now, these bigger logistic jobs, which is what we're going to do in the next episode. In the next episode, we'll think about buying the logistic haul license and doing a logistic haul with some empty cars and trying to earn some good money. I'm aiming for five-figure jobs is my minimum. But anyway, that's it for this episode. Hope you enjoyed it. Please give me a thumbs up if you did. Until the next one, take care, guys. Happy training.